Hello book lovers, and welcome back, or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I will be going through my February TBR. Alright, so I am very excited to be getting into making my next TBR. I actually already finished my January TBR about a week ago, so I've been floundering a little bit with what to read, so I'm very excited to have a list to work from that isn't as overwhelming as my overall TBR. This month I will go ahead and be playing my TBR game as usual, but I am also taking part in a readathon, which is hosted by Martine at Just Martine. So I will go ahead and link the announcement video to that. It is a Heartstopper themed readathon, and I will let you know at the end of the video what books I will be reading for that. In this readathon, you can either take part in a bingo board, or you can read all 3 prompts associated with a character. So Martine has assigned 3 prompts to each well-known character from Heartstopper, and you can either do all 3 prompts for one character and win the game, or succeed at the readathon, whatever you want to call it, or you can do 1 prompt from 3 players that will complete a bingo on the bingo board. So I'll go ahead and put a picture of the bingo board here so you just know what that is. I will be doing the bingo board, but to make it a little bit more challenging for myself, I am making it that I have to complete all 3 prompts for a character before I can mark them off on the board. All right, I figured I would go through my December polls to see if I need to take a punishment or if I get a reward. In December, I did something a little bit different. I will go ahead and link wherever it ends up, the TBR game playlist. So you can go ahead and check that out and see December's. You can also see January's. I did make a couple changes to my game. And of course, the instruction video is in there as well in case you want to check that out. So in December, I did a bingo board and I pulled 12 times. My goal was to get 1 vertical and 1 horizontal bingo, and so I'm just going to go through the books that I used to fulfill that. If you want to see all prompts that I pulled, just check out that TBR video. So for the first one, I pulled a romance with a prompt of a library. So I read We Free the Stars as an audiobook, which I got through Libby, which is from my library. Next, I got a contemporary with a color wheel. I believe the color was something like yellowish, amberish, and I selected Work for It by Talia Hibbert, and I did complete this. Next, it was a fantasy book, and the prompt was Buzzwordathon. For December, Buzzwordathon was numbers, so I read 100,000 Kingdoms, which is the first book in the Inheritance trilogy, so I read up to this little green marker right here. Next, the genre was sci-fi, and the prompt was a verb in the title. I selected Love After the End. This is a book that I borrowed from the library. Then the genre was horror, thriller, mystery, and to start a series, and I read The Dry. And lastly, we had a historical, and the prompt was to read from an author I've previously read from, and I read Uprooted. So I did achieve my December TBR, so I get to pull a reward. All right, I believe that is all I have to say at the beginning of this, so we'll go ahead and dive in with my reward and roll a number 1. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and start with our reward. We'll go ahead and take a piece out of here. Loki's very intrigued by what I'm doing. All right, let's grab this one. And it says ignore genre, which means that if I see a prompt that applies to a book that is not of the pre-decided genre, I can just ignore the genre and use a book that applies just to the prompt I pull. All right, and let's go ahead and get into roll number 1. Starting with a sci-fi. A 4, and I need to take a person out, and I'm able to. So this sci-fi, ooh, okay, needs to be on my Kindle. I don't have too many books on my Kindle, so we will take a look. All right, so with our reward, we went ahead and pulled Ignore Genre. So we'll see if I use that or the one that I pulled in the previous month, which was Exchange for a Mood Read. We'll see if we use either of those during the game. But roll number 1 was a sci-fi, and it had to be off of my Kindle. So I went through the few books that I have on my Kindle. I'm not a huge Kindle user, but the one that I did find that was sci-fi was called The Third Daughter, and this is by Susan K. Quinn. I'll move over so you can see the picture. So this was a book that I just got for free. I was just browsing the free books that they had available during one of the months, and this one caught my attention. It seems to be kind of a Bollywood inspired story, and we are following the third daughter of the Sultan, and she's about to turn 18. She's expecting that once she turns 18 that she will be able to marry her fence instructor, who is her current lover. But before that can happen, a prince from a barbarian tribe or something comes to ask for her hand in marriage. This tribe is in possession of some sort of flying weapon that could be very dangerous to her people. So she agrees to marry him and sets off to actually be a spy and hopes to steal the weapon so it's no longer a danger to her people. I'm assuming that this is going to be kind of an enemies to lovers story, so I'm interested to check it out. Moving on to roll number 2 out of 5. Fantasy or magical realism. Haven't been getting a lot of that lately. Okay, so I do need to take a person out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll have to take a punishment prompt since I'm kicking one of my little black dudes out. But the prompt is a hyped book. And then I'll go ahead and pull my punishments. So I have most of them in here. Second chance author and least read genre are still out since I'm still working on those 2 punishment prompts. But let's go ahead and see what we select. Ugh, gross. Okay, well, a classic. All right, so for roll number 2, we landed on a fantasy, and it was to be a hyped book. For this, I selected The Pale Dreamer by Samantha Shannon. I am taking part in a readathon of this series, the Bone Season series. I don't know what the entire series is called. And it is being hosted by BookStara's book group. I have to admit I don't know much about this one. This is like a 0.5 novella, so it kind of comes before everything in the actual series, and I checked, it's only 78 pages long, so I'm not going to look at the synopsis or anything, but I believe that the series as a whole follows a girl who has psychic abilities of some sort of abilities that she shouldn't have, and eventually she is kind of whisked off to this new world or something. I don't know. We're going into it kind of blind. I've heard a lot of hype for it. I know that readathons for this series have happened in the past, so I'm excited to read this along with a few friends. All right, and we also pulled a punishment, and it is the well-beloved classic. Luckily, I have a book that is considered a classic on my reread list, which is actually what happened last time, because 1984 by George Orwell was on my reread list, and then I read that for my punishment for classic. But this time, a slightly easier read than George Orwell, and that is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is obviously the book that inspired the Howl's Moving Castle movie by Studio Ghibli. We follow a young woman who is cursed to appear as an old woman by the Witch of the Waste, I believe. And she sets out on a journey to live out the remainder of her life and stumbles across Howl's castle and becomes his cleaning lady. And from there, shenanigans occur and a slight romance forms as well. This book is very different from the movie, and I feel like the first time I read it, I was so shocked by how different it was that I never fully got immersed in the story. So now that I know what to expect, I'm really looking forward to my reread of this. Roll number 3 out of 5. A contemporary. And we got a 2, and I can move any of these. Well, these I can't move because they will kick each other out. Oh no, I'm gonna have to take another punishment prompt because this guy kicks out this guy and this guy kicks out. I guess we'll just take this guy out. Oh gosh. All right, so this contemporary needs to be a seasonal read. So we're currently in winter, so this book needs to be a winter themed story. And once again, we will pull another punishment prompt. All right. Oh my gosh. +2 rolls. Yep. All right, so we're doing a total of 7 rolls this time. All right, so we got a +2 punishment prompt. But as far as the actual roll goes, it was a contemporary with a seasonal read. And since we are in the winter season, that is the vibe I was going for. I did struggle a little bit, so this might be stretching it a bit, but I am going with Don't Cry for Me by Danielle Black. Now, the colors on it are definitely fall vibes, but I figured that in the winter, everything is kind of dead, and in the story we are following a father who is dying, and he is writing stories to his gay son because they didn't get along because of the father's homophobia, and he's just, I'm assuming, trying to apologize or, you know, mend bridges, things like that. You know, in the winter, we have a lot of holidays. We want to get closer to family. We're feeling that doom and gloom, that seasonal depression. So this is, you know, a book that's focused on trying to repair bonds with family. But I also have a feeling it'll be very gloomy and depressing. So very excited to finally be getting to this book though. All right, on to roll out of 4 out of 7. All right, we got a thriller, mystery, horror, a 5, and we have to take a person out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At least we're not kicking anyone else out. And this title needs to have 4 or more words in it. All right, so the next roll was for a horror, mystery, thriller, and the title needs to have 4 or more words in it. I decided to select Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine Valente. This is a very short audiobook. I was able to get it right away, and it is only 2 hours long, and considering I tend to listen to my audiobooks on 2 times speed, it'll probably take me like an hour to get through it. This is also a book that is on my 12 books to read for the Vlog Squad challenge, so it'll be good to get another one of those done. This seems to be kind of a suburban thriller kind of situation. We have a woman who is very happy with her life and very in love with her husband and really believes that he is, you know, the center of her universe and that he loves her just as much as she loves him. But I believe things start to occur to make her kind of question that. So very excited to get to it. I've heard relatively good things about it. A lot of people were reading it for a while, and I'm excited to be able to check out what all the hubbub was about. On to roll number 5 out of 7. Another contemporary. A 5. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go ahead and move this guy. And this contemporary needs to be something that continues a series. All right, and we got another contemporary, and this time the prompt was to continue a series. And I will be continuing the duology by TJ Klune with How to Be a Movie Star. Well, the first one is How to Be a Normal Person. In this book, we follow a young man who wants to be a movie star, and he hasn't done too much in the movie industry. He's had like a few commercials and things like that, but it seems that he in this book has the opportunity to be in a film and starts a romance with the director, possibly. I believe the character is demisexual. Yes, so he is a demisexual character who seems to be forming or possibly wanting to form a relationship with his director, who's making his debut film. So the first book had a lot of humor in it. It was also very sweet. The first one had a sexual rep in it as well. So I'm excited to finish up this duology and read some more from one of my favorite authors. On to roll number 6 out of 7. A romance, finally, for the month of love. All right, 5. We need to pull one out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My game is not showing me any love this month. All right, so let's see. The romance needs to have similar vibes to my favorite song. So I'll need to take a look at what my current favorite song is and find a book that kind of vibes with that. All right, and for the punishment prompt, I'm just gonna go ahead and take it off the top. And that is worst books of. So I'll need to look at someone's worst books of, probably their worst books of 2022, since a lot of people just recently posted that, and select the book from there. All right, guys, we're just getting more punishments, I guess. But we landed on romance for this one, and we want a book with similar vibes to a favorite song. Current song that I'm obsessed with is Past Life by The Borns, or Borns, The Born. I don't know what their name is. Anyway, but I love their song. And this song is kind of about, it seems to be kind of about people that have been together in the past, and they keep finding themselves reuniting, and they're just meant to be together. The stars are aligning, everything's perfect. And so I decided to pick up volume 2 of Heaven Official's Blessing by Mo Shang Tong Shu. In this book, we are following Shilan, and he was a well-beloved prince who, when he passed, ascended to the heavens. And then after a while, his land went to war, and he, against the wishes of the gods, the other gods, joined the war and actually made everything worse and became kind of a god of misfortune. And so he fell from the heavens, reascended, fell again, and has now reascended for a 3rd time. So we have someone who is pretty much immortal. He's been living a very long life. And then we have his love interest, you could call him, who has been waiting a very long time to be with Shilan, and they finally, in the first book, start interacting with each other, and this love interest kind of stays by Shilan's side through all of his journeys. So I figured this book would go the best with that prompt. For the punishment prompt, we had worst books of. I did worst books of 2022. I got this one off of Prue's Project's channel, and one of her worst books of the year was These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. I believe this came out in 2020, so I'm sure it was on someone's list in 2020 and probably on someone's list in 2021 and on a few people's in 2022. This is one of those books that had a ton of hype, and then a lot of people seem to be somewhat disappointed by it. It's a East Asian inspired mafia Romeo and Juliet retelling. We are following the two children of the leaders of two warring gangs. It seems they had been in a relationship in the past, but things kind of fell apart, and now their gangs are coming together to fight against some sort of plague that is causing people to pretty much kill themselves by tearing out their own throats. So I mean, I'm hoping that I enjoy it because I heard that there's not as big of a romance element in this, and honestly my expectations have lowered over the years since I first heard about this book. All right guys, what is hopefully the last roll? Another fantasy. Oh gosh, please don't kick someone out. There's so many people there. There's just no way. 4. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my gosh. All right, this fantasy needs to have a city setting, so maybe more of an urban fantasy. And then my punishment prompt. One of my 10 lowest rated books on Goodreads. All right. Another punishment. This is crazy. But for this one, we got a fantasy book that needs to have a city, city setting, and I decided to put another one of my rereads on here. This one is I want to read the first 2 books in the series again, so I can go ahead and get to the most recent release, and that is The Last Son by K.D. Edwards. This is, I would say, kind of an urban fantasy, so it does take place in a city. We are following what's his name, Rune, and he is the only survivor of his family. His family comes from Atlantia, but Atlantia was destroyed, and so his people have gone ahead and moved to an island. Anyway, so they are in their new city called New Atlantis, and his family was completely destroyed by, I'm assuming, the other households, and he was the only survivor. And all these families are based off of the tarot cards. He is now working with his best friend Brand, and they kind of help people find missing people, and in this one of the members of one of the other higher families is asking them to look for their brother, and that leads to other things. I don't remember much from the series from my first read, but I do remember enjoying the characters a lot, and I've warmed up a little bit more to urban fantasy, so I'm hoping I enjoy it even more on the second read. All right then, and for the final book, we had another punishment, and this one was to choose a book for my 10 lowest on Goodreads. Now, Goodreads was glitching a little bit, where when I put that I wanted them ordered from lowest to highest, it was throwing in a couple higher rated books that were obviously not in the lowest rated books. So I'm hoping that the book I selected is actually in the lowest 10, but it seemed to be a little bit wonky and all over the place. So the one I selected is Meet Cute Diary by Emery Lee. I have this one on my Kindle. It's been on my Kindle forever, so I'm actually kind of excited to finally get to it. I believe this is a young adult contemporary story with a trans main character. I don't know too much else about the story. I think a lot of people don't like it as much because Emery Lee's characters seem not to be the most likable, so I'm going into it knowing that, and hopefully it doesn't annoy me too much, but I am excited to finally be getting to the story that I've been eyeballing for quite a long time. All right, so now I'm real quick gonna go through the books that I will be reading to complete a bingo on the Heartstopper bingo board. I will be doing the top row, and like I said, I will be completing all 3 prompts for a character before I mark them off. Luckily, I was able to double up on all my reads, so that's why I'm going to go through this relatively quickly because there's no new books being added. So first we have Tao, and his first prompt is Beanie, a book at the top of your TBR. For this one, I am going to use Don't Cry for Me by Danielle Black. This is a book on my 20 books to read in 2022. It's also a book that I've been anticipating for quite a while, and also it's a book of the month book, and I would like to make a dent in my book of the month books if possible. Next, we have Film Poster, which is a book with an adaptation, and I will be using Howl's Moving Castle for obvious reasons. The third prompt for Tao is Potato Shoe or Shoe Potato. And that is to read a book with an illustrated cover, and I will be reading Heaven's Official Blessing volume 2 for this. Obviously it has a stunning illustrated cover, and it also has little illustrations on the inside. Look how cute that is. So that is what I'll be reading for Tao. And the next person is Ellie, and for her first prompt, it is Glasses, a book that gives you perspective. I will once again be applying a Don't Cry for Me to this. Just a heads up, I don't know if I mentioned this, but you can triple up on prompts, so you can use one book for up to 3 prompts, and I am definitely going to be taking advantage of that. So this book deals with a pretty heavy topic, so I figured it would be good for this prompt. Next prompt is Paint, a book that features art, and for this I will be using How to Be a Movie Star by TJ Klune, since acting is a form of art. And her third prompt is Apple Juice, a comfort read. I almost wanted to use comfort meat with apples because it has the word apples in it, but I have a feeling that's not going to be a comfort read. So I decided to once again use Howl's Moving Castle, since it's a middle grade, it's a reread, and it's associated with one of my favorite films of all time. And the last person is going to be Charlie, and his first prompt is Converse, and that is a timeless classic. Howl's Moving Castle, once again, is going to be used for all 3 people. And obviously, this is, I would consider it, I guess, a timeless classic. I don't feel like it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Next, we have Drumsticks, a book that made a crash. I'm going to use Comfort Me with Apples for this one, just because it's one of the books on my TBR that made the rounds the most, you know, all over Instagram and YouTube. Tons of people were just reading it when it came out. So I'm going to go ahead and use it for Drumsticks. And then for the final prompt, we have Dimples, a book that makes a dent in your TBR. I will once again be using How to Be a Movie Star by TJ Klune. Not only is this on my physical TBR, it is also on my list of 20 books to read in 2023, as well as the last book in a duology, so it'll allow me to complete a series. All right, guys, so here are the physical books that I am planning on reading this month. We also have Comfort Me with Apples, The Third Daughter, and Meet Cute Diary on that list. So we have a pretty busy schedule for February, especially considering it is one of the shortest months, or the shortest month of the year, but I'm gonna go ahead and be optimistic about it. Let me know down below what books you are most looking forward to reading in February. Are you taking part in the readathon? If so, what characters are you prioritizing? As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my videos by watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!